Hello, my name is Harald Zwingelberg. I'm working at the Unabhängige Landeszentrum für Datenschutz, which is the data protection authority of the German federal state of Schleswig-Holstein. And I'm working as the head of department of the Data Protection Technologies department. And we have a series of European and German research projects where we participate in and contribute to all aspects of data protection. In the field of transparency, the General Data Protection Regulation became, if not stricter, at least very much more detailed than the rules we had before. In 3 very long articles, it's laid out which information the controllers have to provide to data subjects, starting with Article 13, which describes the information that must be provided whenever data is collected from the data subject. So usually the situation where data is collected in a shop or online when there's a direct communication between the 2 parties. Article 14 relates to all cases where data is not collected from the data subject. So this also covers all cases when data are collected behind the back of the data subject, the affected persons. So this also requires controllers to address the subjects with the information after collecting and before using the data further. And the data subjects still have the right to ask for their data and to get a copy of their data for their information. So those are the transparency requirements, and we have a lot of clarifications in the GDPR, including that the data subject has the right to get to know where the data comes from, and the recipients, categories of recipients. To my opinion, it also includes information about the data processors. So if the controller is having third parties that do processing for them, like data centers, but also other entities that do like call centers or whatever, work with personal data on behalf of the controller, then these entities need to be named, or at least upon question must be named in case of Article 15. So the GDPR has broad transparency requirements, and this may raise difficulties in some areas, for example, for big data. If the big data relates to lots of personal data of many different data subjects, this requires to inform all these persons. There is an exception for informing the data subjects when this provides a disproportionate effort, but there's also a series of specific examples, including historical research purposes, statistical purposes, but this is rather limited and does not refer to big data in general. So when someone is doing big data, one really has to consider that all the necessary requirements need to be there beforehand anyway. So such controllers need to have data protection officers. They need to have the necessary processes in place to inform persons. They must have their purposes defined, etc. So all of these information need to be there beforehand. And in any case, if it should ever be possible to refer to disproportionate efforts, it is still necessary to have a weighing between the interests of the company in not informing the data subjects on the one hand, and on the other hand, the rights and freedoms and the legitimate interests of the data subjects. And given that this is an exception, it must definitely be given a good and detailed view on the legitimate interests of the data subjects. So altogether, transparency is might be an obstacle towards big data and other certain data processing activities, but it is also a big step forward for data subjects and all affected persons.